Most men completely misunderstand these two types of custom suiting, and that confusion costs them thousands of dollars on the wrong choice. Made-to-measure and bespoke suits represent fundamentally different approaches to custom clothing, yet guys treat them like they are the same thing when they are absolutely not. The confusion starts with how these terms get thrown around. Walk into any menswear store today, and you will hear custom, made-to-measure, bespoke, and tailored used like they mean the same thing. But here is what is really happening. Just like all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon, all bespoke suits are custom, but not all custom suits are bespoke. This is not just word games. It is a fundamental difference in construction, cost, and what you will actually get for your money. Understanding where these terms come from explains everything about why they matter today. The word bespoke started on London's legendary Savile Row, built between 1731 and 1735, and named after Lady Dorothy Savile, wife of the 3rd Earl of Burlington. When a customer wanted a suit, the cloth was said to be spoken for by that individual. This wasn't just fancy language. It represented a complete break from the ready-made clothing that dominated the market. Savile Row became so famous for fine tailoring that in Japan the word for suit is seberu, a direct corruption of Savile Row. Think about that for a moment. An entire country adopted the name of a single London street to describe formal menswear. That's the kind of reputation we're talking about with true bespoke tailoring. The street houses legendary establishments like Henry Poole & Co., established in 1806, credited as the founders of Savile Row, and even credited with creating what Americans call the tuxedo. Huntsman, founded in 1849, Anderson & Shepherd from 1906, and Davies & Son, established in 1803, are among the names that define the row. Davies & Son is the oldest independent tailor still operating. These aren't just shops. They are institutions that have dressed everyone from Lord Nelson and Winston Churchill to modern celebrities like Daniel Craig and David Beckham. Each house has developed a signature cut. Huntsman is known for its structured, high armhole silhouette, and Anderson & Shepherd for their soft English drape. These house styles become as recognizable as brand signatures to those who know what to look for. But the story gets interesting when the traditional Savile Row model faced a revolution in 1969. Tommy Nutter and Edward Sexton opened Nutters of Savile Row, tearing up the unofficial rulebook by infusing bespoke tailoring with contemporary, sometimes outrageous tweaks. 3 of the 4 Beatles wore Nutter suits on the cover of Abbey Road. The street kept evolving through the 1990s with the new bespoke movement led by designers like Richard James and Oswald Boateng, and in 2016, Katherine Sargent became the first woman to open a tailoring house on Savile Row in its 213-year history. Modern houses like Tom Sweeney continue this evolution, offering contemporary bespoke starting at £5,995. Now let's break down what actually separates made-to-measure from bespoke, because this is where most guys go wrong. Made-to-measure starts with an existing pattern that gets modified to your measurements. Think of it like editing a document. You are working with a template and making adjustments. The tailor takes around 10 to 15 key measurements, including chest, waist, seat, sleeve length, and shoulder width. Then the tailor modifies their standard pattern to fit your proportions. Bespoke starts with absolutely nothing. The tailor takes 25 to 30 measurements across your body and draws a completely unique paper pattern by hand. No fabric gets cut until you have been measured, and the pattern is created specifically for you. It is the difference between customizing something that already exists and creating something from scratch. But beyond the pattern differences, construction method separates quality tiers. Full canvas suits use horsehair and linen inner lining, hand-stitched throughout the jacket, creating that natural drape and lapel roll you see on Savile Row tailoring. Half canvas covers the chest and lapels only. Fused suits use heat-pressed adhesive, cheaper but prone to bubbling and delamination over time. True Bespoke always uses floating canvas construction with extensive pad stitching by hand. This fundamental difference shows up in every aspect of the process. A made-to-measure suit typically requires 1 or 2 fittings and takes 4 to 8 weeks to complete. You might have an initial measurement session and 1 try-on, with a possible 3rd minor fitting if adjustments are needed. Bespoke involves 3 to 5 fittings at different stages of construction, including initial measurements, a basted fitting where the suit is partially constructed, a forward fitting when it is nearly complete, and a final fitting. Some tailors include additional checkpoints. The entire process takes anywhere from 8 weeks to 4 months, and in some cases up to a year for the most exclusive tailors. The labor difference is staggering. The Savile Row Bespoke Association, formed in 2004 to protect traditional standards, requires member tailors to put at least 50 hours of hand labor into each 2-piece suit. In reality, a typical bespoke suit requires 40 to 80 hours of skilled work, with some estimates reaching 100 hours of craftsmanship from first measurement to final fitting. Each buttonhole alone takes 20 to 30 minutes to hand stitch, and bespoke suits may have more than 1,000 hand stitches just in the lapel. True Bespoke includes working buttonholes on the sleeves, also called surgeon's cuffs, a hallmark detail that ready-to-wear cannot replicate. Compare that to made-to-measure, where much of the construction is machine-sewn, though higher-end made-to-measure providers do incorporate some handwork to bridge the gap toward bespoke quality. These differences in process translate directly into cost, and this is where many guys make their first major mistake. Off the rack, suits typically range from $200 to $800. Made-to-measure suits generally cost between $400 and $1,500, though high-quality made-to-measure that approaches bespoke standards can run $1,000 to $5,000 or more. Companies like Indochino offer affordable options in the $319 to $549 range, while Suit Supply's made-to-measure typically starts just over $1,000. Bespoke exists in an entirely different universe. Entry-level bespoke starts around $2,000 to $3,500 and can easily reach $10,000 or more depending on fabric choice and the tailor's reputation. On Savile Row, Davies & Son charges from £4,950 for a 2-piece suit, while Tom Sweeney's bespoke pieces start around £5,995. These are not arbitrary markups. They reflect the reality that, as London-based tailor Matthew Gonzalez explains, it takes years for a waistcoat maker, a jacket maker, or a trouser maker to train, typically 4 to 5 years to become fully qualified, and they are not making much money during their apprenticeships. The investment also shows in longevity. A well-made made-to-measure suit should last 5 to 8 years of regular wear with proper care and rotation. A quality bespoke suit can last 10 to 20 years, and with proper maintenance and occasional adjustments, some last even longer. The garment becomes a wardrobe cornerstone that evolves with you over time. Now here is where most guys go wrong, and it is not just about misunderstanding the categories. The biggest mistake men make is expecting made-to-measure to deliver bespoke results. They upgrade from off-the-rack to made-to-measure thinking they will get the same quality of fit as a bespoke garment without the hassle or expense. But as industry experts point out, buying a made-to-measure suit is like using a calculator. If you do not provide the correct inputs, you are not going to get the right answer. This leads to the second major error, self-measurement. Companies like Indochino allow customers to measure themselves at home with a friend, but that creates enormous potential for error. Indochino does not even use literal body measurements. They use alteration measurements, which means the system is trying to figure out how to modify a standard pattern based on your inputs. Get those inputs wrong, and the entire suit fails. The third mistake is moving too fast. The biggest error a guy can make when deciding to become a custom clothing customer is ordering half a dozen suits and a dozen shirts from the same tailor all at once. You are letting your tastes at a single moment shape the bulk of your wardrobe. Tastes change and sensibilities develop over time. Then there is the fabric mistake. One of the most overlooked aspects is choosing the right fabric for your climate and intended use. A heavy wool suit might look fantastic, but will leave you overheating at a summer wedding. Conversely, a lightweight linen suit may wrinkle too easily for business meetings in colder months. When it comes to wool grades, Super 120s or Super 130s offers the sweet spot between durability and luxury, while higher numbers like Super 180s are finer, but more delicate. Premium cloth merchants like Dormeuil, Holland and Sherry and Scabal supply the finest fabrics to Savile Row tailors, with Loro Piana representing the absolute pinnacle of luxury. Most critically, many men ignore their tailor's expertise. Armed with years or often decades of specialized training, a tailor's primary objective is elevating the client's appearance. Their skills extend beyond mere craftsmanship to include a nuanced understanding of anatomy and aesthetics. Yet customers often come in with rigid ideas about what they want, refusing to consider professional guidance. The shoulders issue deserves special attention because it reveals a fundamental limitation of made-to-measure. The shoulders are the hardest part of any suit to alter. If they do not fit right, they can ruin the entire look. Made-to-measure, working from existing patterns, has limited ability to accommodate unusual shoulder slopes, posture issues, or significant asymmetries. Bespoke, starting from scratch, can address these individual characteristics. The online made-to-measure world has created its own set of problems. A brief web search reveals countless horror stories about companies like Indochino, suits that fit terribly, inconsistent sizing from one order to the next, cheap materials, and poor construction quality. One industry observer notes that Indochino is very hit or miss, fits like a glove sometimes, and takes multiple fittings others. I also find their stuff loses shape very quickly. This inconsistency stems from the fundamental limitations of remote fitting. You are asking a system to create a three-dimensional garment based on measurements taken by non-trained individuals using inconsistent methods. Even with detailed instructions and customer service support, the margin for error remains enormous. The industry has tried to address these issues through technology. Some companies are partnering with 3D body scanning apps that use smartphones to capture measurements more accurately. While this represents an improvement, it still cannot replicate the trained eye of an experienced tailor who can assess posture, identify asymmetries, and recommend adjustments that measurements alone might miss. In 2008, the UK's Advertising Standards Authority ruled that the term bespoke could be applied to machine-sewn garments, provided they are made to measure. Traditional Savile Row tailors consider this ruling controversial, and they argue it dilutes the meaning of true bespoke craftsmanship. This ruling has allowed online companies to market themselves as offering bespoke services when they are actually providing made-to-measure. That confusion helps explain why so many customers have unrealistic expectations about what they are purchasing. So when does made-to-measure make sense? For men who need better fit than off-the-rack but cannot justify bespoke pricing, quality made-to-measure from established providers can offer significant improvement. Companies like Suit Supply have built reputations for consistent quality and fit. The key is understanding limitations and setting appropriate expectations. Made-to-measure works best for men with relatively standard proportions who primarily need length adjustments and minor fit modifications. If you are tall, short, or carry weight in unusual places, but your overall proportions are fairly normal, made-to-measure can provide substantial improvement over ready-to-wear. Bespoke becomes necessary when you have significant fit challenges that patterns cannot accommodate, when you want the absolute best possible fit, or when you are making a long-term wardrobe investment. The cost per wear over 15 to 20 years can actually make bespoke economically reasonable for men who wear suits regularly. The pandemic created an interesting shift in the industry. After challenging times in 2020 and 2021, bespoke suit sales increased significantly in 2024. Men who had been working from home were returning to offices and social events, often with changed body shapes that made their existing suits unwearable. Rather than replacing multiple off-the-rack suits, many chose to invest in fewer, higher-quality bespoke pieces. For guys considering custom suiting for the first time, the smart approach is to start small and build relationships. Order one made-to-measure suit from a reputable provider to learn the process and decide whether the fit improvement justifies the cost. If you are satisfied and want to continue, consider upgrading to bespoke for your next purchase. Pay attention to the tailor's track record, look at examples of their work, and do not be swayed by marketing claims about bespoke services that are actually made to measure. Ask specific questions about construction methods, the number of fittings, and what modifications are possible. Most importantly, understand that custom suiting is a relationship, not a transaction. Whether you choose made to measure or bespoke, you are entering into an ongoing partnership with your tailor. The best results come from clear communication, realistic expectations, and trust in professional expertise. The choice between made to measure and bespoke ultimately comes down to understanding what you actually need versus what you think you want. Many men choose wrong because they do not grasp the fundamental differences, set unrealistic expectations, or decide based on price alone without considering long-term value. True bespoke tailoring represents centuries of refined craftsmanship, and while made to measure can offer improved fit over ready to wear, it operates within limitations that cannot replicate the bespoke experience. Understanding these distinctions before you buy will save you money, spare frustration, and help you build a wardrobe that actually serves your needs. The golden rule is simple. If you are going to invest in custom suiting, invest the time to understand what you are actually buying. Your suits and your wallet will thank you for it.